Today I'm thinking about doing things and our desire to do things, how we're driven to do things. So the title of this talk, I think, is To Do or Not to Do. So to start with, well, there's nothing wrong at all with doing things. Of course, we do things, we live. But I would say if there's something to do, do it. If there's nothing to do, don't do it. The way this came about in my mind was during meditation. Ideas often come to me during meditation about little talks I could do. And I realised that there's a subtle, or maybe not so subtle, desire to do things. So I often feel this in my body. In fact, the body is always such a good clue, such a good barometer of where we're at in terms of craving, wanting, for example. That's just one example of what the body can tell us. But what I often find is that somewhere usually in my neck, in my jaw, I realise there's some tension there, and it's as though there's a bit of me that is leaning into wanting to be doing something other than meditating. It's something which is wanting to pull me away from being in that meditative space, that blue sky space. And when I experience that, I bring awareness to it, and as soon as I do that, something just begins to soften. It doesn't always completely soften, but the process of softening begins. Just with that awareness that there is this aspect of craving there. And it's not that there's something that I really urgently need to do. It's just that my mind is looking for things to hold on to, things that my mind wants to do. So the Buddha, in the teaching of the Four Noble Truths, the second of those truths, the Buddha said, was the cause of suffering, and the cause of suffering is craving. And sometimes that craving manifests in very, very obvious physical ways. For example, sexual craving is very strong, it's very physical, and the craving for food is very strong. And we often crave food even when we're not particularly hungry. Maybe we've had a good meal, but a bit later on in the evening we just want something to eat. Whether we're hungry or not, and usually we're not, but we want something. So with this craving for doing things, this wanting to do things, it's a more subtle form of craving. And what was I going to say there? Yeah, it's much more subtle than the more obvious physical graspings. But actually it is, nonetheless, a form of craving. It's a wanting to be doing, it's a wanting to be existing, it's a wanting to, as though we need to justify ourselves by doing something, justify our existence. But let's ask the question, do we need to justify our existence? Can we not treat ourselves to some time when we're not actually having to do things? We can get worn out by doing things. We can get worn out by the drive to do things. What is this drive, this urgency to do things? It's about wanting to justify our existence, wanting to be somebody, wanting to show that we do things with our life. And as I said earlier, there's nothing wrong with doing things. In fact, it's excellent to do things, especially beneficial things, things of value, either for ourselves or for other people. But what's not good, where it gets problematic, is this craving to do things. Because if we just do things from a basis of craving, then all we're really doing is setting up suffering for ourselves. Because we get exhausted by doing the things, we never have any space in our life, and we need that space. We so badly need to sit back and have that space. It's like giving ourselves a holiday. Every morning when we sit in our meditation, what do we do in our meditation? There's this energy in us which wants to be doing something else. Sometimes I'm very struck by the physical energy which I referred to earlier, which I find often in the back of the neck, as though something in me is straining, wanting to do something. But then I laugh at it. There's nothing that I need to do right now. And if that energy was more available for meditation, then my meditation, your meditation, would be much stronger if that energy was more available, rather than being hooked into this desire to do something. So the Buddha's first noble truth is the truth of suffering, and the second noble truth is the truth of the cause of suffering, which is craving. And the third noble truth is the cessation of suffering. And how does that come about? Well, it comes about through the cessation of craving. The less we crave, the less we suffer. So the more that we can let go of this wanting to do things, this tight driving force that we hold on to that wants us to do something every moment, the more we can let go of that, release that, then we get to a point where there is a cessation of craving and a cessation of suffering. The mind wants to take hold of things, doesn't it? There's that phrase in the Heart Sutra, what the mind takes hold of. And later on in the Heart Sutra, there's the phrase, holding to nothing whatever. So when we're doing things, we, to some extent, hold on to the notion of doing something. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to see through what we're doing. So we stay focused on what it is that we're doing. But when there's nothing particular that needs to be done, then we can just let go of the desire to do. So it's not that doing is a bad thing. Doing doesn't bring about suffering. Doing things is very necessary. But it's a question of how we do them and whether craving is present in our experience. And we notice this craving particularly at times when we sit down to meditate, because that's when there's nothing particular to do other than meditate. But of course that's when our craving kicks in, or when our craving becomes apparent. The craving that we want to do something. We could ask our question then, do we just transfer this wanting to do something? Do we just transfer that onto our meditation practice so that our meditation becomes a job to be done? We want to get it done before breakfast, so then we can have breakfast, so then we can get on with the day's work. Is that what we do with our meditation? Or is our meditation, rather than being work, rather than being a job to be done, is it ever more playful than that? Can we just sit back and enjoy the states of mind that can arise if we're not attached to doing something? So I just remind you of what I said near the beginning of this talk. To do or not to do, that is the question. And also the maxim, if there's something to be done, do it. If there's nothing to be done, don't do it.